That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece of wonder, now, for I pinned off's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Will please you sit and look at her? I said, for I pinned off by design. For I never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of his earnest glance. But to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but I. It seemed as they would ask me, if they durst, how such a glance came there. So not the first, I had to turn to ask thus, Sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only caught that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek, perhaps, for I pinned up chance to say, her mental lapse over my lady to risk too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and 'cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. She had a heart, how shall I say? Too much, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whatever she looked on, and her leaks went everywhere. Sir, 'twas all one. My favor at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, the burrow of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace, all in each would draw from her like the approving speech, or blush at least. She thanked men, good, but thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of 900 years old name with anybody's gift. Who stooped to blame this sort of trifling? Who had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such an one, and say, just this, or that in your disgust me, or you miss, or there exceed the mark, and if she let herself be less than so, nor plainly said, her wits to yours, forsooth and make excuse. Even then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grew, I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. There she stands as if alive. Will please you rise? We'll meet the company below, then, I repeat. Then count your master's known munificence. Is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed, though his fair daughter self, as I avowed, at starting is my object. Nay, we'll go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse, thought a rarity, which claws of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me.
We did our analysis on My Last Duchess, a poem by Robert Browning. Browning wrote this poem as a first-person narrative from the perspective of the Duke. This poem has an AABB rhythm, which adds a flowing tone to everything he says.
The Duke is a power-hungry man who seems to be immortally in love with his last Duchess. The poem starts out with dark sentences 1 and 2. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking at you as if she were alive. From then on, we can tell that the Duke is seeming to mourn over the loss of a loved one. The only question is whether or not this Duchess is the last one ever.
The Duke kept this painting of his Duchess extremely private, so when he was asked about this anonymous man to look at the painting and watch it, the man should be able to tell something weird was going on. The Duke also thought of said Duchess as a possession, something he owned in life, and even in death.
On lines 11 through 24, the Duke mentions that it would seem as if the Duchess was all for being in love with only the Duke, but in actuality, she would blush for any man and she'd be too nice to every person she was around.
By using indirect language, it is easy to infer that the Duchess was too flirtatious, but she never realized she went too far. This could bring in the fact that the Duke is overly jealous and watches too intimately everything the Duchess does.
The Duke also shows how he misses everything about her and how much he enjoyed life with her, and the text even goes far as to say, "'Twas all one, my favor at her breast," which I translated to mean that he felt that she was all his and his love for her was insurmountable.
Building off of that, the Duke proceeds to reminisce on the times the Duchess and he had together, and the following lines by using imagery and figurative language to get across his intense feelings for her to the reader.
The syntax changes shortly after in line 34 when the Duke even tries to get the audience, also known as the anonymous man, to agree with him that the Duke would have to stoop entirely way too low to have to tell the Duchess that she goes too far with men.
Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make you will quite clear to such a one. The Duke shows that he has poor speech skills, but overall he is using great figurative language to try and expose himself for something, but at the same time, admitting to nothing.
The Duke seems so embarrassed that he would have to explain himself to a woman that he is more furious than he was than he has been before. We can infer this when he voices. I'm sorry. Okay. We can infer this when he voices his opinions, just this or that, and you discuss me. Here you miss, or there exceed the mark.
At the beginning of line 43, Duke puts obvious emphasis on how much he had to stoop to communicate with his Duchess. Continuing on, he says that the Duchess has constantly had a loving smile towards him, but that this loving smile was not only towards him, but to others. The Duke grew tired of this and admits to killing the Duchess in lines 45 through 47 by saying, "I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together." There, she stands as if alive. The phrase "as if" tends to mean not. The Duke was so jealous and power-hungry that he murdered the one he loved for smiling at others.
During these lines, the conversation gets really serious and dark. When the Duke finally addresses the man again, he tells him that he should rise and go to meet the other company. In lines 51 and 52, we are able to find out that he is actually speaking to his new Duchess's father, and he is about to marry again. The Duke also makes a point to prove that he will tame the new Duchess, so her father shouldn't worry.
After reading The Last Duchess, we can look back on ourselves and realize that all of us hold something dear to us and can obsess over situations. There are times that we covet something so badly that we begin to claim it as our own. Times when we love something or someone so much that we can't seem to let it go. And that's what seems to go on with the Duke. He loves the Duchess and claims her as his own, as if she is his prize not only to be shown to a selective few, otherwise covered up. Another way to prove that people today can relate to this poem is by introducing the thought of Donald Trump. Trump is seen as a power-hungry man that would do anything to build himself up. Everyone around the world would face consequences if he was able to do what he wanted, just like the Duke. If he was able to keep getting new duchesses, he would ruin his kingdom.